I'm Jill Savage, joined with Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
Great day in Dallas. I'm glad to hear we're going to talk about how you can mess with Texas later.
You absolutely can mess with Texas. You can mess with D.C. too. Nobody's ever trying to deny that, but that's where our politics editor, Chris Bedford, is located. I hope you had a good long weekend, Bedford.
I did have a good long weekend. A little bit too long. I mean, too late in going to bed and a little too early in getting up. But that's unleashing on family life.
That's awesome. Well, the news actually never sleeps. And this weekend, we had CIA Director John Ratcliffe drop a major hint on Fox's Maria Bartiromo, and that some explosive revelations about Russiagate may be on the way.
Part of what came out last week was about how John Brennan, Clapper, Comey, they all pushed the known fake Steele dossier into intelligence community assessments and as the basis for Crossfire Hurricane and all that. But what hasn't come out yet, and what's going to come out, is the underlying intelligence that I have spent the last few months making recommendations about final declassification and sent that to the Department of Justice that will come out in the John Durham report classified annex. And what that intelligence shows, Maria, is that part of this was a Hillary Clinton plan, but part of it was an FBI plan to be an accelerant to that fake Steele dossier, to those fake Russia collusion claims by pouring oil on the fire, by amplifying the lie and burying the truth of what Hillary Clinton was up to.
I mean, they were going through and pouring oil on the fire, amplifying the lie, MP. Who would have thought that our intelligence agencies would actually go through and try and make the worst things even worse?
It's shocking. I know. It's not shocking, actually, to anyone watching this show. It's something we know, but it's very important to document, and that is the political origins of all of this and the way in which the intelligence was used politically. I mean, Fox News is also reporting today that U.S. intelligence had credible sources indicating that the FBI would play a role in all of this before Crossfire Hurricane. In other words, people were talking and people knew that this was going to happen outside the United States because the intelligence community was working together with them, right, to start building the narrative. So I think the sum total of the weekend was there is more to come. There still is a case that's building, and it's very good to see the CIA director out there actively talking about this on the record.
So we see from from John Ratcliffe that they were going through and the narrative was intentionally being manipulated, right? So what do we actually go through, Chris, when we look at this? That if we have narratives from our intel that is actively being manipulated, we know this happens, but how do you ever restore truth to anything that these agencies are doing?
Have to depoliticize them completely, and that's going to take purging a lot of the FBI DC headquarters and going through the leadership of other intelligence agencies as well. I mean, there's a precedent for it in the United States. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're at a place because Democrats have gone so far off the deep end and Republicans are fighting back now that there's not any opportunity for bipartisanship. And decades ago, the Church Committee was bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, that really dug into CIA operations in the United States, politicization at the FBI, and all these different things that were just completely wild. How closely they were working with powerful politicians to try and protect narratives, protect reputations, shore up power, do things that were illegal and outside of Congress's jurisdiction. And they were able to do that because they had that jurisdiction. And that's what led to the depoliticized FBI as a law enforcement agency that we largely grew up with. That committee's recommendations and how they were followed is how you ended up with the FBI of Silence of the Lambs, or the FBI that we saw investigating terror around the country, or taking down criminals and taking down human child trafficking rings. That's the kind of FBI that you want to see. But after 9/11, that started to shift again, and domestic surveillance started to increase pretty dramatically with congressional oversight, and the politicization started to seep back in as to who the enemy is. And when Donald Trump, who doesn't matter if he's conservative, doesn't matter if he's liberal, the problem is that he threatened what had been. He was an outsider who threatened that order. He threatened globalism. He threatened military alliances, or he didn't threaten them, but he challenged them to actually step up and do their part in a way that made people uncomfortable. Didn't matter if it was Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, they're going to go at him pretty hard. And that's what ended up happening. That's what we've seen. Now that trust is shattered, and I don't know if the parties in DC can actually work together in the way that they need to in order to help restore that.
Yeah, it's a troubling. I mean, the first thing that seems to me like the overarching cultural point, which I think is the hardest part of this, is that since 9/11, we've just become used to surveillance. So we're just things that would have been unthinkable, for a lot of us growing up. There would have been a revolt. We're just used to the government seeing everything because the technology is such, digital technology is such that you can record everything. And so it is recorded. And that is something that we would have to rebel against as a people in order to, stop a lot of this. If there's a box in the government, you can go up to and type someone's name and see all their stuff. Someone's going to use that box. They're going to type in the letters. And so we would have to say, no, we don't allow that. That's number one. But number 2 and 3, I'm curious thoughts. I mean, I do think that we do have a constitutional or a statutory line that should be drawn for a lot of these agencies that should only be operating overseas, right? They shouldn't be doing anything within the borders of the United States, yet they always seem to circumvent that. So it seems like that's something that Congress and the president could hammer. And then also the FBI could go back to, going after criminals, like law enforcement agents of the federal government, just trying to enforce federal law. I mean, those speak to all three, but I think those last two, those are things I think you could get people to rally around in Washington.
I agree with that. Having the FBI actually go after these criminals and perpetrators and publicizing it. I mean, it was all a little bit of show and tell back in the day. But when the FBI's reputation was made, it was pretty crooked. You'd see, organized crime was running major American cities. Well, that was being denied by politicians. But you would see hundreds of FBI agents trailing Bonnie and Clyde, who were robbing farmers' banks in the Southwest and the South. But at least that kept people interested. That was crime. Didn't end up getting caught by the FBI and all their fancy methods, but that was the kind of publicity that they were always seeking. And some of it was propagandist for sure. Like you could walk into the Five and Dime even when I was a kid and buy an FBI kit. That was a little cap gun with a stick and a badge, and maybe a flashlight or something, or handcuffs or something like that. But that kind of FBI, heroic FBI, has been replaced with a much more white collar FBI, and we've discovered this a lot through our reporting at the Blaze. And Peterson, you've really led a lot of this effort, that there's such a break between the people who are the FBI and DOJ who go into management as opposed to those who continue working on cases. There's a difference between those people who they say aren't actually good enough to be FBI field agents, aren't actually good enough to solve crime. So what do? They become the bosses and the supervisors. They go to Washington. They get in the career promotion track. They try to rise up. They try to kiss Rivers' butt as necessary. It gets extremely political extremely quickly. Meanwhile, the guys who actually join to become police officers, to become investigators, to solve crimes and help people, they're stuck floundering under this stupid leadership in a lot of places, incompetent leadership in a lot of places, who are just constantly getting in the way with their politics. And fixing that culture is going to be essential. And that's actually something that Patel and Bongino have talked a lot about, and focusing on that, which is important.
Well, the CIA and ODNI, they're all like, hey, we're turning these documents over. DOJ, it's your turn. Go ahead. Take them. Please do something with them. Okay, that means AG Pam Bondi. It's time to step up. Now, she did say that she announced the formation of the strike force last week that is supposed to investigate all of the evidence that's been publicized by DNI Gabbard. But when I look at this, Matt, okay, so now everything is going to rest with Bondi and DOJ. Please make this one different than the last few that we've seen.
Well, the pressure is certainly on. As Chris has detailed before, this is not going to be easy because, first off, you have statute of limitations problems. So some of this stuff happened a long time ago. This is a tricky business to actually prosecute. Nonetheless, I believe that if lawyers get creative, there's nothing they can't do. And I really think that there are a lot of things that certainly she should take action on and can take action on. But it's going to take some serious people really giving it a look and really putting in some serious effort.
Well, Bedford, what do you make of Dan Bongino? He went out on X this weekend and he wrote that we cannot have a republic like this. We can't run the republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. Now, again, we have sat here and thought through a lot of crazy things on this show that we think, oh, this could be, the end of the republic one way or another. Dan Bongino is now saying, right, he has access to a ton of documents that nobody has seen, that haven't seen the light of day. If he's going through and saying this, we know that the deep state is a problem. But what does this message send to you?
It sends that he's taking this extremely seriously. I mean, he was an outside influencer. I met him years and years and years ago for the first time doing TV. And he was someone who built an empire, certainly, on being able to write good headlines, be able to get attention on things, be able to get eyes, built that radio program up, built the alternative to the Drudge Report, the Bongino Report up. So I know that he's definitely capable of kind of selling something and not just being a boring bureaucrat in any way. But this shows that he's got his eyes on the ball, that they're taking this very seriously. A lot of times people come into these positions of power and they see how it is and they get really upset by it. But then they realize, at least in their mind, they rationalize, oh, that's why it's necessary. That's why this is important. All right, this is a system I don't really like, but I get this is the way it is in an imperfect world. And then they kind of preserve it and end up protecting it and becoming loyal to it. This is a strong sign that is not the case with Bongino, that he has seen it, that he's unconvinced, that he's not going to be scared. Like so many people in DC are scared and frightened by their time in the skiff, where they give you sensitive intelligence reports and scare you about the world and doing everything that the deep state says. Apparently that's not working on him, and that's a good sign.
I'm going to say it again. All I want for Christmas is perp walks.